neck.
No. That's the first time I ever enjoyed saying no.
That's the first time I ever enjoyed hearing it.
Enjoy yourselves, darling. It's later than you think.
That's what I say. It's later than you think. Come on, children, let's neck.
Groucho, Ethel does not neck, and neither do I.
Speak for yourself, darling.
Miss Barrymore, please. We are trying to keep this program on a high plane.
Oh, that's right. I'd like to be now on a high plane going back to...
Would you girls mind if I lowered my voice into the conversation?
You stay out of this. You're the cause of all this. Whenever you're around, it's always talk, 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 talk. Why can't you learn to relax and give someone else the floor?
Okay, you take the floor and I'll stay on the couch. Doctor. My brother thinks he's a chicken. And we don't talk him out of it because we need the eggs.
Dear old Dad, as a token of my esteem on Father's Day, may I present you with this little gift? Well, thank you, son. Say no more, my dear. Can boast of having his son save his life on Father's Day.
The only purpose was to get a good laugh, and no one was better at it than the cast and writers of Your Show of Shows, starring Sid Caesar.
Yes, sir. This is your story, Al Duncy.
Sid was probably the chaplain of television, I think.
Al. He's a little Al Duncy. Al boy. This is your story, Al. Now, come on up here.
When you think of it now, when you think of improvising on a live show in front of, 30 to 40 million people, you can only admire the matador in him,
Hello, Al. Remember me? I used to encourage you. I helped you in those desperate years when you needed help.
Uncle Goopy!
Goopy, if you'll just...
Uncle Goopy!
Yes. We've got to get on with your life, Al. If you'll just set Uncle Goopy down. Uncle Goopy, you can sit down now. We'll see you later at the party. They're certainly happy to see each other, aren't they? Now, just sit down here, Al, and we'll get on with your... Has been a full life. And here's a voice that will bring back nostalgia and a flood of memories. We flew her in all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa. And here she is now. Listen and recognize this voice if you can, Al.
Hello, Al.
one for the road?
Another breed of television comedy evolved from radio, the situation comedy. The top stars of radio were lured to TV by network executives.
It's too late.
So I looked at people who were so good in radio that I thought they'd also be good in television. So by 1948, when things started up, we had some very good material to work with. They gave us a marvelous start in television.
Oh, hello, Gracie. Hello, Blanche.
Situation comedies, sitcoms, appear every week with the same cast playing the same characters. Families, friends, and co-workers getting stuck in a variety of small-scale crises.
Maybe I should have gotten the wristwatch. All right. You want me to... I'll start from scratch.
That I am sure.
Do not hold your bow too tightly. It will help you play more lightly. Play it softly, not so brassy. Pull your tongue in your nut, lassie.
The Ford dealers of your community present Mr. Peepers, starring Wally Cox.
Television quickly developed its own situation comedies with its own stars. One of the first and most popular featured Wally Cox as mild-mannered science teacher Robinson Peepers. An idea that began as a sketch on Jackie Gleason's variety show became a series and a sitcom classic, The Honeymooners.
The Honeymooners are marvelous. They have an energy, a rawness. Art Carney tells stories of Jackie Gleason saying between, say, the second and the third act of The Honeymooners, of an hour show, saying, forget the script in the third act during the commercial break. Forget it. He said, what do we do? He said, don't worry about it. Just wing it. Follow me. And, you know, ad-libbing for 12 or 13 minutes, which is really scary.
All right, go ahead. Here we go.
What did you stop me for? It's just rolling, man. You're supposed to waddle like a duck. How can I waddle like a duck?
Well, it's easy. Just walk like you always do.
Never mind the $1.99.
Phil Silvers was Sergeant Bilko.
on, Sarge. Remember Hilda? The fat one? Yes, she's fat, which only means she eats good. And I understand she does her own cooking. Let me handle it. You can't be too particular, so what if a dame is a little fat and a little sloppy? Hello! Hilda, how are you, darling? This is Zany Boy. Yes, some friends of mine and I were in the neighborhood. We thought we'd give you a buzz, as they say. You want us to come right over? Well, after all, Hilda, it is dinner time. We do hate to barge in on you like this. You're not having dinner. You're on a diet? Well, if you think it's for your appearance, it's all right. Beep, beep. Oh, there's the bus. We must run. Thank you very much, Hilda. Take care.
The 50s sitcom star who could hold her own with anyone was Lucille Ball. Her comedy transcends time and national boundaries. Turn on a TV in any country in the world, and chances are you'll still be able to see I Love Lucy. There were few 50s sitcoms as zany as Lucy's. Maybe it had something to do with the national mood in the Eisenhower era, but many were bland depictions of families living in blissful domestic tranquility.
Well, that's what I like to hear. What's the verdict from dear old Dad?
Well, evidently you haven't been counting. You know that dear old Dad took on about 5 pounds of pancakes this morning. I'll take another one right now.
Can I have a couple more, Mom? Yes, you bet you can. Help yourself.
I think you kids will help more if you go in the house. Too many cooks spoil the soup, you know.
The children were lovable and well-adjusted. Dad was the breadwinner, and Mom was stereotyped as an adorably dizzy homemaker.
Now, let's see. As I remember, you push or turn something to start the motor.
Oh, we'll get to that in just a second. First, I want to explain about these two pedals on the floorboard here. There's your brake pedal there, and your accelerator.
You push the little one to go and the big one to stop. Isn't that right?
Yes, roughly.
Father knew best, even if he was a bachelor father.
Bachelor Father. Starring John Forsythe.
It was a different period of time then because everything was much more innocent. And family-oriented shows. Robert Young's show with Jane Wyatt and Ozzie and Harriet. Those were and Leave It to Beaver. Those were the shows of the day.
We ran for cast.
The 60s. John F. Kennedy was president. The national mood was different, and maybe that showed up in one sitcom family. Dick Van Dyke played the head writer of the Alan Brady Show. At night, he came home to suburbia and married Tyler Moore.
My job. What'd you win?
Oh, I won a dryer and a rotisserie. I'm so unhappy.
Why?
Because you didn't watch all of the show.
Why? I told you I had to work.
No, Rob. At the very end of the show, I didn't handle myself too well with that Patrick rat.
Oh, he got you to say something embarrassing, didn't he? What was it?
That Alan Brady is bald.
One of the highest compliments I ever got for our show was that my wife, on seeing the first few episodes, said it was eerie to her because it was she identified with it. It was the same thing that happened at home. She couldn't see the difference in my behavior at home and on the show.
That's your story in
It was a rare bright spot. In the confusion of the 60s, situation comedy backslid even further than the "Hi, honey, I'm home" family shows of the 50s. Now it was "Hi, honey, it's home." Bizarre, inane, and popular programs that starred hillbillies, Martians, monsters, and talking animals.
Don't be a wise guy. I want you home at 9 o'clock every night.
9 o'clock? Oh, come on, Daddy-O. You're pulling my hoof.
But as the decade ended, a remarkable change took place.
The genre was burned out, and the people were ready for something different. That something different was the truth in comedy, the satire of making fun of bigotry and hate and racial discrimination.
All right, let's get to the point, huh? Lionel, what he wants to know is if you think he's prejudiced.
Prejudiced?
Yeah.
Against who?
Against black people.
Against black people? Mr. Bunker? Well, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard.
There, you see that nice guy? You thought you knew him, you thought you knew me. Oh, these liberals. They're supposed to be so sensitive, you know? Well, I'll tell you where this guy's sensitive, Lionel, right in his tuchus.
All in the Family was definitely breakthrough television. Norman Lear really did change American television. They started dealing with real things, real issues, real people.
The shows reflected what we all of us who wrote and directed and produced and so forth, what we were feeling, what we were looking at, what we were observing in our society, what we were learning from our kids and our wives and husbands, and we were reflecting our times, but funny.
You don't want to get uptight about it, Mr. Bunker. There's nothing to be ashamed of being Jewish.
But I ain't Jewish.
Look at that. Look at that. See the way he uses his hands when he argues? Very Semitic gesture.
What do you know about it, you dumb Pollock?
All in the Family was based on a hit British sitcom, Till Death Us Do Part. It took 3 years to convince the networks that America was ready for Archie Bunker.
Now, there you are, Mr. Bunker. Now, you ought to be proud you're Jewish.
But I ain't Jewish.
I didn't know you was Jewish.
What the hell are you talking about?
And they did get a lot of telephone calls, but they were surprised that many of the calls were positive, and that no state seceded from the Union. Their worst fears were not realized. And I think we all learned together that, not to the point where they never harassed again and didn't fight about content again, but they learned that, that America was far more grown up than they had thought.
All in the Family was acceptable. It was breakthrough, but I guess it was tame enough not to cause a lot of, people's noses to get out of joint. Soap, there was an awful lot of pre-publicity to soap that had people frightened before they even saw it. Stations were yanking it off the air before it even got on the air.
Chester goes through women the way an elephant goes through peanuts. He fools around with anything, anytime, anywhere. He lies, he deceives, he sneaks around. He cheats before work, he cheats during work, he cheats after work. He cheated on our honeymoon, he cheated on our anniversary. He cheated while I was in labor in the hospital. In the hospital. He has cheated practically every week of every month of every year of our entire marriage. But other than that, he has been a wonderful husband.
Another important comedy of the 70s was also aided and abetted by Norman Lear.
There's no question that he paved the way for us at CBS, certainly, to accept tougher themes, more sophisticated themes. Vietnam, of course, was a very strong influence in what we did on MASH. I guess by now it's no secret that a lot of the attitudes which we put forth as 50-stroke Korean-type attitudes were really based more on what was happening in the 70s and in Vietnam.
Anglo Chemicals is at 47.5, thanks to napalm. I bought it at 39, and my United Foundry's up too. They're coming out with a new automatic rifle.
Betting on destruction to win, place, and show?
I've got a family to think of. I've got to leave them something in case I get killed.
Frank, the only way you're going to get killed is if you operate on yourself.
MASH combined comedy with a biting commentary on the realities of war, a long way from the world of Sergeant Bilko. The series often experimented with the sitcom form. One episode was an exercise in improvisation, filmed in black and white.
When the doctors cut into a patient, and it's cold, the way it is now, today, steam rises from the body. And the doctor will warm himself over the open wound. Could anyone look on that and not feel changed?
Another company, MTM Enterprises, was perfecting new, intelligent, and witty family situation comedies at the same time as the breakthrough work of MASH and Norman Lear. The foremost example of the MTM approach was The Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Mary Tyler Moore brought sophistication to the half-hour form. And when I say Mary Tyler Moore, I think I'm talking about Mary Tyler Moore as kind of the ornament on top of the Rolls Royce, and in the car, and very much a part of it, were the kind of creative people she inspired to provide the kind of material that we had never seen.
It was 7 years of a life that went so swiftly. I don't even remember shaving. It was fantastic.
It was a very good television show. And by that I mean the characters were really very well made, I think, very well conceived, and the writing, the things that not the story so much, since this 22 minutes of situation comedy that isn't that important, but the words that given those characters to speak to each other were better words than most other characters were getting on other shows.
Since the 70s, MTM alumni have continued to breathe new life into the situation comedy.
Hey, I'm real sorry I had to stop you from seeing Monica.
Oh, that's okay.
Listen, it's nothing personal, but sometimes you just gotta do what your head tells you. So look, I don't blame you for being sore. You got every right, so if you want to, you plant one right here. Go ahead. Come on, don't worry about it. Plant one right there. Go ahead.
Thanks, Tony. I do feel a little better.
Alex, don't you ever worry about the fact that there are enough bombs in the world to destroy every living creature and wipe out life as we know it?
Hey, I got bigger things on my mind. Can I use the business section here, Mom? Thanks.
Maybe we can just tell Matt he's one of the neighbor children.
It's just so predictable, that's all. And every time one of these ex-hippies comes prancing in from yesteryear, we got to get out the love beats. Put on the ponchos. Pretend we care about people. I'm just a little too old for that stuff.
Alex, Matt's an old friend of mine. He's only going to be here a week. Be nice. You've got the whole rest of the year to not care about people.
Nobody's swept away when they have the presence of mind to say, maybe we should kiss.
All right. You're right. You're right. All right, when I do it, I won't say anything.
No, this isn't right either.
Hey, I didn't say anything. I was swept away.
Let's face it, the moment's not right. We're too aware of what we're doing.
All right, you're right. I mean, this whole thing is not going the way it should.
No.
Maybe we should just forget about the kiss and hit the sack.
This is the dumbest conversation we have ever had, which means it's the dumbest conversation that's ever been.
Family comedy is back, but not with the bland mom, dad, and kids of the 50s. The family can be headed by two divorced mothers.
Seems really sweet. You sound more disappointed than I am.
Then you are disappointed.
Well, a little. I mean, dating isn't about having dinner. Dating is about finding somebody so you never have to date again. Oh, nice.
Cafe Amaretto for moments like these. And David's not the one, huh?
No.
Well, how can you tell after one dinner?
I can tell after one drink. Oh, tonight it took me till dessert.
So what'd you do?
I ordered tortoni.
A family can be 4 older women living together.
Oh, it is wonderful dating in Miami. All the single men under 80 are cocaine smugglers.
You know, I'd kill to be 20 again.
Oh, I would kill to be 40 again.
People have been talking about the aging of America, and now the audiences are ready for this kind of a show. And that indeed may be true, but that isn't why we did it. We did it because it's funny, and those ladies are funny.
You know, I had the shock of my life today. I was in the teacher's lounge talking to a group of girls in their 20s. Oh, they were so pretty. At that age, you don't even have to be pretty, and you're pretty. Anyway, we were laughing and giggling and having a great time, and I completely forgot that I was older. You know, I just felt like one of the girls, and we had a wonderful time. And then I got into my car and caught a glimpse of myself, and I almost had a heart attack. This old woman was in the mirror. I didn't even recognize her.
Who was it?
It was me.
Oh.
That's it.
In among the jokes, situation comedy often preaches a gospel of acceptance and equality.
How do I know? Because the boy is intelligent, he's in pre-med, he loves to cook, and he doesn't mind a woman having a career. Ta-da!
What about Elvin? You should hear his ideas about marriage.
Oh, Cliff, he's only 20 years old. He'll change.
No, not Elvin. Elvin is tough.
Well, so were you.
What?
Cliff, you were an Elvin.
I was not.
Please. When you were 19, you used to strut around like a peacock, point to me and say, my woman.
Yeah, but I changed.
I know, because I changed you.
Relationships are not the only things that have changed in TV comedy.
You can watch the opening credits, and I should be right back. Okay?
On programs like Showtime's It's Gary Shandling's Show, the conventions of the sitcom are turned upside down by people who grew up with television and make fun of it.
What about the previous owners? You did change the locks.
No, I didn't, but I can't picture Vanna White coming back to rob me.
Well, neither can I. Vanna seems like an honest girl.
Yeah. And how would she know that I'm not even here unless she's watching this show? No, this can't be. Not Vanna White.
Is there an R?
Yes, there are 4 R's.
I'd like to try to solve the puzzle. Is it I stole Gary Shandling's furniture?
You're right.
For $200, I'll take Gary's couch. For $325, his Sansui stereo. For $75, his female mannequin. For $6, his bug collection. For $12, his rack of lucky underwear. And I'll take the rest of the money on a gift certificate.
I paid twice that for that rack of underwear. That woman got a bargain.
Monty Python poked fun at ponderous TV documentaries.
Yes, gangs of old ladies attacking defenseless, fit young men.
Well, they come up to you, like, and push you, you know, shove you off the pavement, like. There's usually 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, this used to be a nice neighborhood before the old ladies started moving in. Nowadays, some of them don't even go out to the shops.
The whole problem of these senile delinquents lies in their complete rejection of the values of contemporary society. They've seen their children grow up and become accountants, stockbrokers, and even sociologists, and they begin to wonder, is it all really...
Moonlighting, comedy romance barely disguised as a detective show, acknowledges the TV savvy of its audience and its stars.
David, there's a coffin back there.
You're kidding. A coffin in a hearse. Call Mike Wallace.
Let's just hold it right there, shall we? My client isn't answering any more of your questions.
You just can't burst in here like that.
Oh, no? Tell that to the writers.
One thing that makes it different, I suppose, is that there's this sense that these people sort of know they're on television, that they watch television, that they're bored with the form, too.
Then understand this. I don't give a flying fig about the lines in my face, the crow's feet by my eyes, or the altitude of my caboose.
Hey, it's okay. That's what you got me for.
And I don't give a flying fig about people who do.
Well, I'm at a loss. I don't know what a flying fig is.
That's okay. They do.
Let's try one more. President Ferdinand Marcos... Hal, is there a problem? President Ferdinand Marcos and his wife... Imelda... Wait a minute, what? You know what, I tell you, give me a second, Paul. I want to check something. Excuse me. There's something not right here, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be right back. Just give me 1 second. I just want to... Excuse me. I'm sorry. Pardon me. Are you with the production? Okay, good. I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Okay. Okay, give me a second here. I want to check this out and see what's going on in the control room. Just take a second. Oh, here's the deal. I completely forgot about it. Look, it's Wednesday night. Wednesday night is dog night here in the control room. I'm terribly sorry for being so impatient. You're doing a wonderful job. That's great. It's dog night here in the control room. That was what the deal. Hey, wait a minute. Is this some kind of crazy dream? Or... No, it's dog night. Okay, we'll see you later.
Comedy that rises from an awareness of the TV medium is not new. One of its first practitioners was a man some considered a comic genius, Ernie Kovacs.
I believe it was me who once said, let the viewer be selective. Science gave us hands to turn off television sets. Boy. Son, don't get fresh with me. I'll just reach over and turn that knob and off you go. That's all, huh? Yeah, that's all. I'd like to see you try it. Hmm? All right, you asked for it. Fool around with me, will he?
Don't laugh, and I took what Ernie did with the medium. The use of the medium is more than a means of transmittal. And we applied the technical advances that had been made in television to humor. And so we stepped up the pace, the energy. We took out all of the fat and cut away everything that was unnecessary.
Hey, my wife was supposed to come to the party tonight, but she's home with mononucleosis.
Oh, well, you'd better be careful, Dan. You just can't trust those Greek millionaires.
We had 13 marvelous writers, and the fact is that it was the first show that I can ever remember where there were no rules. There was no beginning, no middle, no end.
Tonight we're going to take a look at work.
Well, great. I'm all for that.
You mean work?
No looking at
I
it.
thought so. Did you ever have to work real hard at anything?
Well, once it took 2 dinners and a bottle of wine.
I mean pursuing something utilizing your full capacity that could result in an achievement providing great personal satisfaction. Ever do that?
Yeah, as I said, once it took 2 dinners and a bottle.
We could say anything. We could do anything. We were a big enough hit that we could get away with anything. And, you know, President Nixon came on and said, sock it to me.
Sock it to me? We offered the same opportunity to Hubert Humphrey, who turned it down. His advisors turned it down. And if you'll recall, Mr. Nixon only won by 1 million votes. A lot of people have accused us.
We are two wild and crazy guys.
Since 1975, Laugh-In's combination of satire and broad humor has been carried on with a sharper edge by the writers, producers, and cast of NBC's Saturday Night Live.
You know I'm not a crook, Henry. You know that I'm innocent. I am, Henry. I had nothing to do with Watergate, the bugging of Watergate. I had nothing to do with the cover-up. Nothing to do with the break-in of Daniel Ellsberg's psychiatrist's office. Nothing to do with the guy who was killed in Florida.
What guy was killed in Florida, Mr. President?
You mean you don't know about the young Cuban who was run over by the... Never mind, Henry. Get down on your knees and pray. Pray with me. Pray with me, Henry.
Oh, Mr. President, please. We've got a big day tomorrow, so why don't we just get into our jammies and go sleepy time, huh, Mr. President?
Television like you. Second City Television, or SCTV, made television the primary focus of its satire. Nothing was sacred.
The battle of the PBS stars will continue later tonight on SCTV, scanning the world over to bring you the hilarious and the tragic. SCTV Sports.
The crowd is literally buzzing with excitement as Mr. Rogers, representing Bill Buckley's team, enters the ring. Oh, look out there, Fred. The slender chap's not used to this sort of fare. Tonight, he prepares to face the heavily favored Julia Child, the French chef, if you will. More about that later. But first, let's take a look at both fighters in their respective corners as they prepare for the upcoming bout. There's Child, cool and collected, obviously in shape and ready for this fight. But what about Rogers? Experts have questioned, myself included, his ability to participate in so physical a sport. Some going so far as to cast aspersions on his manhood itself. And of course, the confident Julia Child. And there's the bell starting round 1. But there, he rocked Julia Child with a devastating left, and the French chef is visibly shaken. Not unlike George Steinbrenner after his humiliating defeat to Tommy Lasorda's Dodgers. But more about that later. Rogers is chasing her around the ring. She's running in terror. Coco Van, or no Coco Van, this woman is in trouble. This is really disgusting. This is not the sort of fare we're used to bringing you. I certainly hope the young fans of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood aren't staying out to watch this bloody travesty. But wait, a sudden turn of events. Child coming on strong, no longer on the defensive. The two of them trading blows like gladiators in the ancient Roman tradition, fighting to the death. This is a tremendous fight. You can feel the momentum actually swinging toward Child.
And what just happened there? He grabbed a puppet. Oh, look at this. He's hitting Child with the lovable King Friday. And the French chef is down and being counted out. This is an unheard of tactic. Child is out cold.
Why isn't Rogers being disqualified? Instead, he's being declared the winner. I don't have to explain. You saw it. He beat the woman unconscious with a puppet. Oh, the papers will say that Fred Rogers won. But in my opinion, it's a dark day in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
On American TV, not necessarily the news on home box office is one of the rare outlets for political humor. One of its specialties is re-editing news footage.
I'd like to ask one question of everybody. Everybody that can remember what they were doing on August 8th of 1985, raise your hand.
For truly vicious satire, there are the puppets of Britain's spitting image, video equivalent of savage political cartoons.
At times like this, Ed, I often think of Truman's famous words.
What's that, Mr. President?
Yes, you can drop the bomb on the Japs. Hey, Ed, I've got it. Why don't we send down 10,000 voting advisors?
Well, hell, I don't know, Mr. President. We don't want to drift towards another Vietnam.
Why is it no one likes the memory of Vietnam, Ed? Why don't they think about the good things that war gave us, like Apocalypse Now, or the theme from The Deer Hunter?
Right again, Mr. President, but there's still a lot of people expressing concern over the speed with which we're becoming military involved in Central America.
For goodness sake, Ed, I'm going as fast as I can.
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
For all that television comedy has changed, it is still often the basic stand-up comic who makes us laugh most, even if he's an electronic figment of our imaginations. HBO and others offer an uncensored showcase for young comics and have spurred a boom in comedy clubs. Without video gimmicks, a lone person with a microphone can create some of the most original moments in TV comedy.
When I first moved into my house, there was a switch on the wall. It didn't control any lights or anything. I just flick it up and down every once in a while. And about a month later, I got a letter from a woman in Germany saying, cut it out. I have a microwave fireplace. I can lay down in front of the fire for the evening in 8 minutes. For a while, I lived in Vermont with a guy named Winnie. We lived in a house that ran on static electricity. If we wanted to cook something, we had to take a sweater off real quick.
For these TV performers, virtually no topic is taboo. personal or political.
I don't know a thing about politics, and I'm not going to pretend I even know anything about politics. Heaven forbid, I'm not as smart as our president, you know, and all that, but, I don't want to be rude, but, like, weren't the Iranians the bad guys a little while ago? I guess somewhere in our government they said, let's see, like, who's the most crazy we can give guns to? Manson's in jail. So, I don't know. Just spit it out. I'm so confused on what's going on. Like, there was all these guns, there was money. We had Israelis sold arms to the Iranians, right? And I'm not trying to be a racist, but apparently there's like some kind of profit made by the Israelis, and that sounds pretty odd to me. And I can tell you this much, that I know somewhere right now, Nixon's like going, he's going, Pat, take that bag off your hat. Come on, we're going out in public again.
But there have been great things for black people, like I said. Thank you very much. We had 2 black Miss Americas. Makes me proud. After that, they picked Miss Utah. It's a long way to go to make a point, don't you think? I'm glad we had a Miss America named Vanessa, though. Because I was tired of people named Becky Sue, Nancy, and shit. We had a Vanessa. It's almost like having a president named Darnell. Or Jesse. I like Jesse, but the news media mispronounces his title. They always want to call him Reverend, and that's not right. It's Reverend. Reverend Jackson. And he has a church. And a choir. That's why he didn't win. Nobody knew what the he was talking about.
Now I want to ask you a question. How many of you ever started dating someone because you were too lazy to commit suicide? Yeah, come on. You know what I mean? The kind of trolls that you've devoted your whole lives to them, and then they say, well, I need to see other people. Yeah, well, watch Donahue. Okay, sex ape. And I have this friend, Mary Beth Easy, and she's not really my friend. She's more like a landmass with a perm. And no, but I mean it as a compliment. You know, so anyway, one day she called me. You remember she called me and she said, Judy, are you coming to my wedding? And I said, oh, yeah, right. You know, like I have time to buy her a blender. Just 'cause some pipe fitter is poaching her eggs. Yeah, just 'cause some busboy from Meals on Wheels found her F-stop. I have better things to do, like stay in bed and complain. You know what that's like, don't you, Princess of Power? Look at you, you're begging to be me. Yeah. By now, I'm sure you can tell that I'm the kind of woman who sits by the phone and waits for some man to call. Crawl for it.
Among the best known is Robin Williams. He works without a net, supported only by his imagination.
You don't need drugs when you have a kid. You're awake, you're paranoid, you smell bad, it's the same thing. You're like, the baby. I've come home sometimes, saw my wife in the doorway with a large knife going, I think you should talk to him. You expect to walk in the nursery, see the kid 5 feet over the floor going, come in, Father. Damien, put the dog down, Damien. Because they do horrible things, little babies. They go up to the dog and go, doggy. You can see the dog look at him like, oh. You'd be dead if you were a cat. But since they love you, okay. And then they do something wonderful, though, just when you're about to play hand baby. They look at you and go, Daddy. Oh. Then he looks at the dog and goes, Daddy. And the dog looks at you. I don't have to send him to college. Yeah. There's nothing you can do. My son is 3 years old. It's an amazing time. It's like big head, little tiny body. It's an outrageous time when they ask you about everything. It's like,
why is the sky blue?
well, because of the atmosphere.
Why is there atmosphere?
Well, because we need to breathe.
Why do we breathe?
What the f*** do you want to know? A year ago, you were sitting in your own shit. Now you're Carl Sagan. What is it? Who are you? Are you Buddha? Ask Mommy. She's omnipotent. She knows everything. Nothing. There's nothing you can do. And if you have children, I know a couple of you have children. You must have a few, and you left them at home tonight. Yeah, you snuck out, you lying bastards. You left them with a little old lady you hope doesn't have a prison record. Yeah. You hope that she doesn't drink, so when you call, how's the baby? How's the baby? That on. Because as you walked out of the house, the last thing you saw was a little face pressed up against a plate glass window going... And you walk to the car going, I feel like Dr. Mengele. Ave. But you know, as soon as that door slammed, the kid turned to the sitter and went, old lady, they're out of here. Let's peel off these Pampers and party. You like Fisher-Price music? Dreams about your kid. You have dreams that maybe one day your kid will be up there going, I'd like to thank the Nobel Academy. Then you have this other dream where your kid's going, do you want fries with this?
For television, I'm Edwin Newman. American television in the early days with a schedule of programs that still had quite a few rough edges. If you'd been one of the 8 million owners of a TV then, you could have seen a variety of shows that looked like this.
Be with you 1 hour tonight if I were free to do the things that I might. I want you to know that you couldn't go until we close the curtain on our TV show.
No matter what we look like, just remember this. I'm Ku Klux Klan. And I'm really all.
You, Harry S. Truman, do solemnly swear.
I, Harry S. Truman, do solemnly swear.
Hoochie coochie shim sham shimmy.
It's a woman dancing on the beach at Waikiki. I want to go back to my little grass shack. Where the huma huma nuke. Where the huma huma nuke.
Good evening. This is Ed Hurley, speaking for the makers of Kraft Mayonnaise, who bring you each week a fine play with a fine cast on the Kraft Television Theater. Stand by for Captain Video and
love with Emily. She comes from a fastidious family. By that I mean that her father was fast and her mother was hideous. But I can't move. You've hurt my leg.
You're like my foot.
Nice work, cousin.
Now we have a 41-year-old machine tool inspector from Worcester, Massachusetts. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Bill Walker and his musical saw.
Like, if I may, to read you my favorite psalm. This is Psalm 139.
When away we go.
Television is funded by a major grant from MCI, offering fiber optic and digital technology for long-distance voice and data transmission. MCI, communications for the next 100 years. Additional funding was provided by this and other public television stations, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by the Marilyn M. Simpson Charitable Trust.
Hello, I'm Edwin Newman. In 1923, 3 years before he founded the NBC radio network, David Sarnoff sent his colleagues a memo. This is what it said. I believe that television, which is the technical name for seeing as well as hearing by radio, will come to pass in due course. It is the ultimate and greatest step in mass communications, unquote. Well, television is an invention that has fulfilled Sarnoff's prophecy beyond expectation, but his was an audacious position back then. The international race for television was a jumble of good intentions and broken promises, chicanery and genius, crushing disappointments, and brilliant discoveries. Just 60 years ago, the idea of travel into space was taken seriously by only a handful of enthusiasts. Most thought of it as an impossible dream, best kept to the pages of comic books and Tom Swift. Another idea regarded with similar skepticism by all but a few was the notion of electric pictures, television. Both of these visions became reality with lightning speed. Their technologies now joined with the development of the communication satellite. First proposed by Arthur C. Clarke in a magazine article written in 1945, more than 60 of them now girdle the planet, supplying television sound and pictures for hundreds of millions of people. It is an astonishing revolution, all the more remarkable when we realize how far we've come in such a short time. Television began with images like this. The year was 1928, and this is one of the earliest surviving television images. Only 8 years later, after much struggle, one nation was all ready to begin broadcasting in a big way. It was not the United States.
The station goes on the air.
November 2nd, 1936. This is the opening of the British Broadcasting Corporation's television service. It was the first regularly scheduled TV with high-quality pictures in the world. BBC television was on the air 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. Only about 2,000 viewers saw the opening broadcast, but it was a major victory in an extraordinary international race for television that obsessed a handful of pioneers from Tokyo to Berlin and from Leningrad and New York City to London. There was no sudden flash of inspiration that came to a single inventor. The development of television was a series of eureka moments, a natural progression in a world that had seen the birth of the telephone, radio, and motion pictures.
Conjured up in sound and sight by the magic rays of light that bring television to you.
Wonderful thing, television.
Television was born to a tiny audience, but from the very beginning, TV was a vigorous infant, full of show business energy and good old-fashioned schlock, a harbinger of things to come. Television was an idea that existed long before its realization. Tantalizing hints of what it could be were the territory of some clever cartoonists. A century ago, the French artist Reuploaded was amazingly accurate about what television would be like, from home shopping to risque entertainment. Television, he thought, would offer educational courses, provoke sex and violence, and actually bring into our living rooms the horror of war. But television soon became more than a topic for futuristic cartoons. Many men and nations were involved in the race to make TV a reality.
Baird definitely was the very first to successfully demonstrate television.
And he said very quietly to me, "I've come to tell you that I have achieved television."
Electronic TV was first invented by our own countryman, Professor Boris Leibovich Rosing, in 1907.
Germany was, in fact, the first country to begin an expanded service.
The idea was that we were trying to beat the British to get a continuing service of television on the air.
At that moment, I was very, very happy. And I said to myself, now for the very first time, we have the basis of television.
And all these great minds were working night and day. It was a kind of an international race.
Whether any one person can be declared the winner of that race is still a matter of debate and national pride. What is certain is that the roots of television go back more than 100 years. From the 1880s, experiments in Russia, Germany, the United States, France, and Great Britain paved the way. Even Alexander Graham Bell designed elements of the system, although he never attempted to build it. As early as 1907, the word television was used in Scientific American magazine. By the 20s, more than 50 serious proposals for distance seeing had been documented. But a fundamental division emerged between two methods of making TV pictures, a division that was to create bitterness and controversy. Some insisted that television would have to be electronic, using the recently invented cathode ray tube. Others were equally committed to the idea of mechanical television. This is the heart of mechanical TV, the Nipkow disc, invented in Germany in 1884. Spinning at high speed inside both the camera and the home receiver, its size and crude pictures were to prove disastrous for its supporters.
We introduce Mr. John Baird, the inventor.
This is the scanning disc with its lenses. This is the second disc by which the light is further divided and passes into the light cell.
John Logie Baird was an eccentric Scot with several failed businesses behind him. With his assistant, Victor Mills, Baird conducted the first successful experiment with mechanical television.
And I put my hand in front of the neon, just a flick,
But in the meantime, Baird yelled out, "It's here, it's here."
That image, reconstructed here, was the first time anyone had achieved an instantaneous moving picture anywhere in the world. The year was 1923. Experiments continued. Because the scorching lights and the rigidity he needed from his models were too much for a human sitter, he used a ventriloquist dummy named Stookie. By 1926, Baird was able to transmit a picture 8 miles and had put together his own company, Television Limited. In America, experiments in mechanical television similar to Baird's were going on as well. Charles Francis Jenkins, one of the inventors of the motion picture projector, demonstrated a mechanical system to government officials in Washington in 1925. The next year, General Electric presented a demonstration of its system, developed by Ernst Alexanderson. By then, a young engineer in Japan was experimenting with electronic television. Kenshiro Takayanagi recalls that he was very conscious of the race.
I thought to myself, I'm also doing serious research into television, and I must never let the other countries beat me. So I have to get something done very quickly. I decided that to begin with, I would try to transmit the Japanese letter I. Then, very soon, a really good image appeared. I know that I was able to show the character I on my screen.
In the late 1920s, the Soviet Union was also in the race for television. During the vast social upheaval in the years following the revolution, Soviet scientists quickly solved the basic problems of producing television pictures.
This, in essence, is the first television picture obtained by us as long ago as 1928.
While an experimental studio in Leningrad worked with mechanical TV, major developments in electronic television were being made in Tashkent as early as 1926. For the Soviets, however, radio was the new popular miracle. Some scientists left revolutionary Russia to continue the television race in the West. Vladimir Zworykin came to America. A firm believer in electronic television, Zworykin had, by 1923, developed a cathode ray tube called the iconoscope, but his boss at Westinghouse was dubious.
He wasn't very impressed. So finally he asked me a few questions, mostly how long did I work with this system and so on, and departed, saying a few words to the director of the laboratory. Later on I found out that what he said was, put his guy to work on something more useful.
Zworykin found a more prescient patron in the powerful RCA company and its redoubtable boss, another Russian emigre, David Sarnoff. Sarnoff had early recognized the commercial and entertainment potential of television and was given to visionary pronouncements about it. He announced, "The whole country will join in every national procession via television." And he predicted that it would transform human relations. With Zworykin plunging ahead, Sarnoff hastened to buy and control many of the patents crucial to the perfection of television. There was one significant holdout. Today, 200 Green Street in San Francisco is a historic monument. Elmer Farnsworth was with her husband more than 60 years ago when he conducted research in electronic television. It was 1927, and Philo T. Farnsworth was 20 years old. His widow recalls his dedication to television, revealed on their wedding night.
He said, "You know, there's another woman in my life." And I said, well, I didn't say anything. I was dumbstruck. And he said, well, her name is television. And in order to have enough time together, I want you to work with me. And he said, we're going to be working right on the edge of discovery, and it's going to be very exciting, and I want you to be part of it.
Television is about to emerge from the laboratory to bring into your home news, entertainment, and material of educational value.
RCA tried to block Farnsworth's application for a patent. When that failed, they tried to buy him out. He refused. But money was a problem. One sponsor who attended his first demonstration was a banker called Daddy Fagan.
Mr. Fagan called out and he said, "When are we going to see some dollars in this thing, Farnsworth?" And immediately a dollar sign appeared on the screen.
It became more and more evident that electronic television was the better method, but advocates of mechanical television stubbornly clung to the belief that theirs was a viable system. In London, John Logie Baird continued to develop his mechanical TV, but it was still noisy and cumbersome, and he also had run into serious money trouble. It was time for a bold gimmick.
It is interesting to note that as far back as 1928, I spanned the Atlantic with television.
Almost 35 years before the communications satellite, Baird sent a television picture from London to New York. The low frequencies used for TV then allowed the signal to travel much greater distances than today. In another successful publicity stunt, Baird's team set up their equipment on board the SS Berengaria in mid-Atlantic and invited the ship's radio operator to view his fiancée in Baird's London studio. The press ate it up, headlining, "Lovers Meet by Television." But there was little comment about the fact that the operator had difficulty recognizing his fiancée. The images produced by mechanical TV remained very crude for all Baird's energies. American companies such as RCA, AT&T, and General Electric were also active in the race for television.
And we'll now show you the first motion picture record of a television image.
This picture was recorded and synchronized with sound in the General Electric Company's House of Magic at Schenectady, New York.
By the end of the 20s, there were 28 licensed visual broadcasting stations in the United States, transmitting faces and silhouettes. GE broadcast Al Smith's acceptance of the Democratic presidential nomination. Radio stars like Rudy Vallee were eager to appear on the new device. Charles Francis Jenkins was sending out a regular schedule of telecasts. His program manager, herself a frequent performer, was Irma Cronin.
A goblet is a sailor's little boy.
The picture was about, I'd say 6 by 6 inches, maybe. And as we broadcast, we were using a neon tube with a 365-degree scanning wheel in front of it. The result was a red background. The figure was purely a black silhouette. It looked very much like a shadow play. So I never was stopped on the street and said, somebody would say, "I recognize you," because they couldn't have recognized me. They could not have known my features. There weren't any features on camera. There was just an outline in black.
Television experimentation was also expanding at a rapid pace in France, as well as in Germany and the Soviet Union. John Logie Baird, undaunted by the relatively crude images his system was still producing, began a long and often bitter campaign to get the BBC to transmit his mechanical system. He continued to ignore the increasingly high quality of the pictures being produced by experimenters in electronic television. Baird's chief electronic rival in Britain was EMI, which was affiliated with America's RCA. At its laboratory in Middlesex, EMI also had the services of an émigré Russian. Isaac Schoenberg was having success equal to that of his former colleague, Vladimir Zworykin. One of EMI's engineers, Bernard Greenhead, remembered an early demonstration.
Everybody seemed to be particularly pleased, and I think we were very pleased ourselves that there hadn't been any breakdowns. The equipment hadn't coughed at any time. And after the visitors had gone, Schoenberg came back into the control room and he said, "Well, gentlemen, you seemed to have perfected the biggest time waster of all mankind. I hope you use it well."
By this time, it was clear to most American entrepreneurs that mechanical television was a failure. The Depression and the conflict among the different systems being experimented with in this country drove people like Charles Francis Jenkins out of business. Only companies like RCA, with the huge profits generated by radio sales and its network, NBC, could afford to continue research. Zworykin had told David Sarnoff it would cost $100,000 to perfect his electronic television system. Sarnoff wound up spending $50 million. Work continued in other countries, including Zworykin's homeland, the Soviet Union.
When everything was ready, you heard, "Attention, attention, attention, comrades, radio viewers." Note that, radio viewers. Watch, listen to the first television concert.
And the radio viewers didn't have such a set. They didn't know what was going on. They tried to see something. They looked into the loudspeaker, and of course, they could see nothing. And our magazine received a flood of letters. Tell us where we should look.
In America, experimental broadcasts were taking place from a lab established for Philo Farnsworth by the Philco Corporation. Progress in the United States was slowed partly by high costs and arguments over a universal standard for TV. There were several electronic systems, none of them compatible with any other. Farnsworth's patent battle with RCA and Sarnoff continued as well. Farnsworth was upheld by the courts. RCA was forced to negotiate a licensing agreement. When the deal was signed, RCA's representative allegedly had tears in his eyes. Both Sarnoff and Farnsworth continued to make prophetic statements. Showmanship in presenting political appeal will be more effective than mere skill in talking, Sarnoff predicted. Advertisers will be given new possibilities. And a newsreel announcer declared,
"Technicians in the Farnsworth Philadelphia laboratories have helped to make television, the dazzling dream of the decade, a practical reality today."
Farnsworth and Sarnoff urged the speedy introduction of television on a commercial basis. Competitors balked. Why hurry when the picture still needed work and radio was so profitable? But RCA was determined to win the race for television.
We didn't want anybody to know how well we were doing. It was sort of like a spy. Anybody would give it away. The British would know and would beat us. So that was the whole purpose of that early secrecy, just to make sure that we were first.
Various delays were to cost RCA the worldwide race. In Britain, from August 1932, John Logie Baird had started an experimental service transmitted by the BBC. But as in America, the BBC was uneasy with Baird's crude mechanical pictures. If television remained a problem for the engineers, it was also a trial for the artists appearing on it. TV stars of the mechanical television studios often had to work in total darkness and very restricted spaces, scanned by a hot and brilliant beam of light. For those involved in either the mechanical or electronic experiments, makeup was a particular nightmare. Bizarre color combinations designed to bring out some semblance of a person's features. Performers needed a healthy sense of humor to look in the mirror.
We had makeup on me, put makeup on me with black lipstick. I looked like Pola Negri or Garbo years ago in silent pictures.
By 1934, Baird's commercial backers insisted that he take notice of the rapid developments in the rival electronic television. Baird's sponsors paid for $50,000 worth of electronic components from Philo Farnsworth to give a boost to the mechanical system. Farnsworth crossed the ocean and gave Baird a demonstration.
Mr. Baird was extolling his method of television, and he thought that it was better than Phil's and all this. And he got to the door of this room, and he got a sight of the screen, and he became still. He carefully and slowly advanced to it like one mesmerized until he stood right in front of it and stood there for quite some minutes. And then he just turned and left without a word. And Phil felt very badly for him because he knew that he was hearing the death knell of his pet method of television.
Germany was also a leading contender in the TV race, opening a regular television service in 1935. Surprisingly, the Nazis did not directly exploit television's propaganda potential. Hitler never spoke on TV, and the service mainly transmitted novelty shows to a tiny handful of public sets in Berlin.
What the British were intending to do at the end of '35, we could do very well beforehand, that very day even. And so on March 22nd, 1935, from one day to the next, the first TV service in the world had begun.
It's still debatable whether this system won the race for TV. For one thing, the 180-line pictures were much cruder than the images superimposed in these German-made newsreels. The BBC began its regular service the next year with a picture that consisted of a high-definition 405 lines. But certainly, broadcasting from a studio in the Berlin post office, Ursula Patschke became one of the world's first television announcers.
I had a dog who always went with me. Time would drag, but what else was I supposed to show? I left my seat, got the dog to jump up into it, made him sit up and beg, told him to say bow wow. And then he'd said bow wow, of course. People were intrigued.
In Berlin before the war, when I was Daily Telegraph correspondent, there was a video telephone service opened between Berlin and Leipzig. I think it was on March 1st, 1936.
Hallo? Tag Helga. Na siehst du, da bin ich selbst. Na wunderbar.
Within months, and with the help of some of Philo Farnsworth's American cameras, the Germans televised the 1936 Olympics, although the audience was still tiny and largely restricted to viewing rooms in Berlin and Hamburg. One of the cameramen was a young man named Walter Bruch.
Und die Stelle, wo die Kamera war genau das Ziel da drüben vom 100-Meter-Lauf. Dort konnte man also übertragen, wie Jesse Owens damals seine Goldmedaille verdient hat. Und das war also ein herrlicher Platz und für mich ein unvergängliches Erlebnis. Ich bin kein Sportler und ich habe das alles durch den Sucher der Kamera gesehen und habe also sozusagen einen besseren Platz gehabt da unten als Hitler.
The last round of the fight between mechanical and electronic TV took place in Britain. John Logie Baird versus EMI. Baird's experimental transmissions were closed down by the BBC in September 1935 after 1,500 programs. A government report recommended a final and decisive competition between Baird's system and EMI's electronic system in a 6-month trial.